Occult families and bloodlines, families of ritual power. Why we must look at both, the spiritual and the physical. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Occult Families How to Spot Them series. What's loosed in heaven is loosed on earth. You've heard that phrase, but let's break it down clearly. To loose something in heaven means to release a spiritual contract, force, or code in the unseen realm. Once activated, it begins shaping events in the physical. That's not metaphor, that's sequence. First the spirit, then the flesh. First the energy, then the event. When a blessing is loosed in the spiritual realm, it shows up as access, open doors, favor, breakthrough. When a curse is loosed, it shows up as interference, sabotage, illness, energetic collapse. Whether you acknowledge it or not, spiritual causality governs physical reality. That's why this guide begins with the blueprint, not the behavior. Occult families, those rooted in bloodline control, ritual abuse, and energetic manipulation, don't operate by dysfunction alone. They follow spiritual systems. Roles are assigned long before they're played out in the living room. The trauma isn't just personal, it's patterned. And unless you understand the spiritual structure behind it, you'll never break its hold. You're not just confronting a toxic parent. You're contending with a containment system. You're not just healing exclusion. You're confronting a spell of erasure. You're not just feeling drained. You're registering the enforcement of a ritual contract, one you didn't agree to, but one that's been running through your bloodline like software. This guide doesn't start with the trauma. It starts with the template. Because once you see the system, how it was built, how it repeats, you can finally interrupt it. What this guide is and who it's for. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11-time published author and founder of School of Soul, SOS, and this is Occult Families, a survival guide for the chosen ones. This series exists for the anomaly in the bloodline, the one who never aligned with the system you were born into. If you've always felt like the outlier, scapegoat, or misfit, while sensing an invisible war unfolding behind the scenes of your family's normal, this guide is for you. You may have noticed patterns you couldn't explain, dreams you couldn't shake, sensitivities no one else acknowledged. You knew something wasn't right, but no one gave you language for it. This is the language. This isn't just memoir. This is the result of years of deep spiritual research, trauma excavation, and grid mapping after I made the decision to walk away from the system that raised me. I broke the contract, I cut the cord, and I made it my mission to name what others left buried. What I found confirmed what many suspected but couldn't articulate. This is not random. It's not unique. It's a system. And that system is spiritual. Across families, across cultures, the same roles emerged, the same rituals repeated, the same energetic sabotage cycles unfolded, different surface, same grid. When I began sharing pieces of my story online, people came forward. Their details varied, but the spiritual architecture was identical. That's when I understood. This isn't just about one family. This is about a global pattern of ritualized control running silently behind closed doors, and someone needed to call it by name. The chosen one. Assignment. Not ego. In every ritual system, roles are spiritually assigned. Some are born to protect the contract, others to serve it. And then, there's you, the disruptor, the anomaly, the chosen one. Not because you were more loved, but because your frequency couldn't be programmed. Your essence couldn't be overwritten. You came in with an internal clarity that threatened the survival of the structure. From an early age, you resisted without knowing why. You asked questions no one else voiced. You felt the weight of something unspoken, and became the target for it. The system didn't fear your weakness. It feared your sight. You weren't punished because you were broken. You were punished because you carried the frequency that could break the spell. Chosen doesn't mean favored. It means assigned. Your presence alone is a breach in the grid. And for those who benefit from the grid, that makes you dangerous. Your siblings may have been assigned as enforcers, mirrors, spies, or vessels, roles that uphold the ritual structure. But you were coded for disruption. That's why you've suffered the most. Not because you were cursed, but because you carry what's required to end the curse. Your life may have been marked by loneliness, confusion, or rejection, but all of it has prepared you to fulfill one task: break the contract. You weren't meant to be understood. You were meant to complete the mission. This is the map. This guide is for those ready to leave, those questioning what they were born into, and those who've started remembering things they were never supposed to access. It's for those decoding dreams, unpacking memory gaps, and discovering that their family system never saw them as a person, only as a role. Or worse, a sacrifice. This isn't a light read. It doesn't soften or sugarcoat. It names the unspoken, because healing begins where silence ends. You're not delusional. You're not crazy. And you're not alone. You're the first in your bloodline to recognize the pattern and choose to end it. You're not just different. You're chosen. Spiritual contracts, physical consequences. This series focuses on the spiritual mechanics of ritual family systems, because nothing unfolds on Earth without first being loosed in the spirit. You live in two bodies, physical and energetic, two timelines, seen and unseen. This guide speaks to the unseen, the rituals you didn't consent to, the roles you didn't assign yourself, the energy wars you didn't sign up for, but lived through anyway. If you want the mirror version, the same pattern viewed through the physical world, read Gang Stalking, the TI's survival guide. That guide walks you through the control structures when spiritual ritual becomes social ritual, when the family grid merges with external interference, lodges, covens, digital handlers, or strangers playing coordinated roles to contain you. Think of it as the second face of the same coin. This series is the spiritual face. Disclaimer. The content presented in this guide, School of Soul, Occult Families, is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It addresses advanced spiritual concepts, intergenerational trauma patterns, theological symbolism, and metaphysical frameworks that may be disturbing or triggering for some individuals. By continuing to engage with this material, you acknowledge that you are doing so voluntarily and that you understand the need for personal discernment. This work is not intended to serve as a substitute for psychological counseling, psychiatric care, medical treatment, legal advice, or any other form of professional or licensed support. If you are experiencing emotional distress, trauma responses, dissociation, or psychological instability as a result of this content, please seek immediate help from a qualified mental health professional. This work explores complex and often controversial subject matter, including, but not limited to, occult symbolism, ritual abuse, spiritual contracts, and familial power dynamics. It may challenge deeply held beliefs, religious doctrines, or personal worldviews. Reader discretion is strongly advised. If you are under the age of 18, this content is not recommended without parental guidance and professional supervision. By proceeding, you affirm that you understand these terms and accept full responsibility for your personal engagement with this content. All spiritual interpretations, metaphysical frameworks, and personal accounts contained within this guide represent the author's research, lived experience, and theological perspectives. They are not definitive diagnoses, legal claims, or universally accepted truths. You are encouraged to think critically, verify sources, and make your own informed decisions before drawing conclusions or taking action based on the material presented. By engaging with this series or any related content produced by School of Soul or Soul Renovation Systems, you agree that you alone are responsible for your interpretations, choices, and outcomes. Adeline Atlas, School of Soul, Soul Renovation Systems, and all affiliated persons or entities explicitly disclaim any liability for harm, injury, or loss arising directly or indirectly from the use or application of this material. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation in leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival. It's about awakening, about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.